All right, all right. What's up, guys? Sorry, a couple minutes late. Little technical difficulties after the holiday weekend. I apologize. Thank you for being patient with me. It's draft. It's final draft week. It's final. It's here. We made it. 3 more days. We get 3 more days to draft, and so kind of instead of doing some draft reviews like we would normally do on Tuesday, I thought it was important to talk a little bit about kind of, we're all, I think most of you guys, if you're watching this or if you're in the Discord, you've been drafting a lot and you're probably going to continue to draft, smash these drafts over the last few days. I think there might be a little overlay, say on drafters. We'll see how DraftKings plays out. And maybe Puppy 3, has some overlay. So there's some good opportunities for us to still get our money in good in these contests. And there, are different edges across the different sites and in the different contests, but there's not like a ton of different things that we can kind of do now that we haven't been talking about all summer, right? If you're watching this, whether you're new to Spike Week, new to Best Ball, whatever, you've probably still already kind of consumed a ton of fantasy football content, best ball content. You understand the players, ADPs, stacking, all these different things, right? And if you're like me, you've drafted a lot of like early teams and seen how crazy ADP has shifted, particularly on underdog. On DraftKings, I think it's maybe shifted for the better for us. I think it's really soft right now, which we can get into. But I just wanted to talk about maybe some final little things that I think we can do, whether it's specific players or whatever, to extract the last little bit kind of edge that exists drafting at this point in time. And so, obviously, if you saw the thumbnail or you saw me on Twitter today, I think one example that really jumps out to me specifically is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is one of these player examples, I think, that we can really leverage in our remaining however many drafts you're going to do over these last few days. And you might think like, how does the Kyle Pitts thing make sense when, maybe there's some people with him at a little bit better ADP earlier. So he's not, I do want to get into a couple of those examples of some guys maybe we can buy now that we maybe necessarily weren't buying before, or even if we were, their ADP has fallen. So there's examples like that too. But Kyle Pitts, to me, is an example of we've kind of I think we've just gotten smarter. I feel like I have personally gotten smarter about players like Kyle Pitts, but we don't have to avoid every single guy that rises in ADP, especially in the first few rounds, because there's only so much a guy can rise or fall. I guess he can fall a lot, but a guy can't rise a ton when you're a top 3, 4, 5 round pick. But what we've seen, historically even, but even just using like last year as an example or the last couple years as an example, we know inherently what the value of an elite tight end does for your team. Again, if you've been drafting or consuming best ball content over the course of this summer, you know that already, right? There's a reason Travis Kelce is a first round pick and was a borderline must for you to win anything last year in best ball, because of what has happened to this tight end position, not even just in fantasy football, but in the NFL in general, and even in college, right? And it's kind of a trickle, there's this trickle down effect that the reason these elite tight ends are so powerful in fantasy is a byproduct of what's going on in real life football, right? The tight end position is almost, it's not going away, but the tight end position as it relates to a key factor, a key piece in NFL offenses is kind of going away. And so it's this weird, it may seem backwards that we've had this evolution to more passing in the NFL, but teams have also identified that more passing doesn't necessarily mean using the tight end position specifically more, especially what we would think of as like the old school tight end position. There are tons of other athletes, weapons that teams can use that just give them more, more ability to attack defenses than like a traditional tight end. And so that position has sort of, like really started to dry up. And so we pipe dream about a lot of guys, and a little bit of it was bad luck with like an Irv Smith injury, right? But we pipe dream about late round tight end. And that used to be like a thing when there were a lot more available tight ends, as pieces of NFL offenses. And maybe when, offenses weren't going spread with 4 wide receivers and using, dynamic running backs and playmakers, right? Travis Etienne was a first round pick. Say whatever you want about Urban Meyer, drafted as sort of a weapon, right? Not even just a traditional running back. And so all these things are creating this interesting scenario at tight end where we don't have many options. These elite tight ends are it's not like, just because these elite tight ends are so good that they're providing the edge over the field. It's that beyond a handful of tight ends, they're almost all useless for fantasy, right? And so, I think I personally was lazy on going back to Kyle Pitts as an example early on in draft season. It's easy to do that. It's easy to fall into this trap of, okay, he's a rookie tight end, right? That's the thing that everybody has talked about all year. He's a rookie tight end. We have all the data points, and all the examples of historically rookie tight ends and how they have basically not performed well for fantasy. The issue is that so I tweeted about it. I can even bring up this tweet because I think it's better for me to kind of reference this than bumble through repeating exactly what I just tweeted. So let me just share my screen really quickly. Should have had this pulled up, but such is life. Okay. So let's look at this thread that I kind of put together here on Kyle Pitts and some examples as to why I believe he is kind of this cheat code. And so again, starting at the tight end position, we know Travis Kelce is great. Darren Waller, George Kittle are great. And we have another small tier of, say, Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. Mark Andrews is a guy who I think, can definitely be a hit and be a nice win in fantasy. I think it's fairly unrealistic to say Mark Andrews, is going to elevate to the level of a Travis Kelce or something like that. I think he can be a good, efficient player, particularly as Andrew brings up here about Andrews, that his situation has gotten better, definitely, like with the wide receiver injuries and stuff. And even like maybe possible trickle down effect to with their running back room, the issues that they're having in their running back room. So I'm not even arguing against Mark Andrews at all. But what we see is beyond that tier of, say, Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson, it is a wasteland. We can come up with reasons to like Noah Fant and Robert Tunyons and Tyler Higbee's, and Mike Gesicki's and all these guys, and they are fine as well. They're totally fine as well. But we don't have a situation, and some of them are good prospects too, but we don't have a situation at this position that we know the inherent value of getting that super elite option. Not only just because of how many more points he's scoring, right? Travis Kelce gave you an advantage because of how many points he was scoring over his opponents, right? You have Travis Kelce, your 11 league mates do not have Travis Kelce, obviously. And so you're getting his 18, 20 points per week. And they're sometimes getting 2, 3, 4 points, right? It's a ginormous edge. It's even an edge over that next tier, right? Darren Waller was great, and Travis Kelce still, embarrassed him in total points last year. And so we know the inherent edge of the point scoring. We also get the edge when we're drafting of then you only need to take 2 tight ends. Some of you sickos that are in here and in the Spike Week Discord are taking 1 tight end when they get an elite guy, which I mean, I'm totally fine with that as well. I prefer 2 personally. Maybe I'm not as adventurous as you guys, but there's the roster construction edge, right? It allows you to load up at other positions, and it allows you to gain points on your opponents. And I think Kyle Pitts is a guy that we've been a little bit, the industry, myself included, everyone has, because he is labeled a tight end, we have lumped him into this rookie tight end thing and this tight end position that we think that we're thinking about it like Madden or something, right? Like we put that positional tag on that guy, and now he is a tight end. But the game of football, like we said, is changing. And there's so many positive things about Kyle Pitts' situation before we even get to this like unicorn level talent, which I'll also get to a little bit here. Like I said in this tweet, I think we just made some excuses for a superstar player. Now we didn't make excuses. He's not going in the 10th round, right? I think these elite tight ends are probably undervalued. And I think we've seen that play out over the course of this draft season, how incredibly important these guys are, even more. And it's kind of just been a light bulb moment for me over the last couple of weeks or so. I knew that. I think we all knew that. You guys knew how valuable these tight ends are, these elite tight ends are, especially in best ball, but managed leagues as well. But I think just as we've seen the tight end position just continue to dry up and continue to dry up, I think that these guys provide such an edge. And Pitts, to me, as the cheapest of those top 4 guys, and in my opinion, as a better football player and having more, legendary upside than the Andrews and Hockenson guys have. Some might argue with me about Hockenson, and that's fine. But I think being in the Falcons offense versus being in the Lions offense, and Hockenson is a really good talent and a good prospect, but he's not Kyle Pitts. And again, I'll get to a point that Hayden Winks posted in here that I thought was really good. So we've made excuses a little bit for why we can't take Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round, or why he was even falling for a stretch into the 5th round on Underdog. And we made excuses as to why we can't draft him there with the rookie tight end thing and whatever. And we kind of do this thing where we make fun of NFL coaches for, we got to establish the run, or we can't go for it on 4th and 1 or whatever. And then I think we kind of were a little bit lazy with some of those types of takes as it related to Kyle Pitts. And the reality is, if you just seriously take a step back and think about Kyle Pitts and think about the Falcons offense and the draft capital and everything that they spend on him, he's a wide receiver. He might go in line a little. He's basically a wide receiver that we get to play at tight end, right? As much as I love George Kittle, and George Kittle is a smash, and I'm not saying don't take George Kittle. George Kittle is a lot more of a traditional tight end because he's such a good blocker than Kyle Pitts is. Kyle Pitts is basically a wide receiver. Then we think about the fact that, okay, we already know what an edge it would be to be able to play a wide receiver at tight end, given what we know about the tight end landscape. Now, take this smash prospect, right? 4th overall pick. Amazing. Everyone agrees he's this incredible prospect. Now, he's on a pass. This is a high volume passing offense. Great for fantasy. Their defense, everyone agrees, is bad. Everyone agrees Kyle Pitts' defense is bad. The Falcons are not going to be, locking down opposing offenses. Playing a dome, we know dome games are great. Just brought in a brilliant play caller, right, from Tennessee, who created like unbelievably efficient offenses. Arthur Smith is a brilliant offensive mind. We were excited about A.J. Brown and all these guys on Tennessee, and he was the one calling the plays. He turned Ryan Tannehill into a great fantasy asset. And now they wanted Kyle Pitts. Now he has Kyle Pitts. We know Matt Ryan is still a competent quarterback. It might be nearing the end here for Matt Ryan, but you're not super worried about Matt Ryan being able to get the ball to Kyle Pitts. And then people have used the Calvin Ridley thing against him, but we didn't use Calvin Ridley against Julio Jones. We're not using Julio Jones against A.J. Brown. We're not using Justin Jefferson against Adam Thielen. We're not using Amari Cooper against CeeDee Lamb. It's just the tight end thing. The only reason we're unwilling to invest in Kyle Pitts is because of the tight end label. The target competition is not an issue because it's not an issue for tons of other offenses, right? We draft tons of teammates highly, and tons of teammates smash, especially in condensed offenses, which I think that this is going to be between Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts. Like Russell Gage, Olamide, Olamide, I don't even know how you say Zacchaeus' name, right? They don't have anyone else. It's a reason why people are drafting Mike Davis, because they don't have anyone else. But we feel skittish taking Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round. And I don't think that we should. And I think, again, as we'll get to a little bit more, there are some strong reasons to still being in on Kyle Pitts. And really quick, I will jump to this. I agree. I totally agree. Hayden Hurst, Siege. I did a draft with the Siege, CJ Kaltenbach, 2 weeks ago, something like that, and he was pitching Hayden Hurst, and I agree. I think Kyle Pitts is basically a wide receiver, and Hayden Hurst is the tight end in that offense. So people are calling it they're going to play 2 tight ends, and I guess that's fine if you want to put that label on Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is just a football player, and I think it's this really unique situation where, if Kyle Pitts was just labeled a wide receiver, which is what I'm going to get to here in just a second, if Kyle Pitts was labeled a wide receiver, no one would have any. Maybe I don't know where we would draft him, because there's a difference between having, him be in a wide receiver spot versus a tight end spot. But if he was just labeled a wide receiver, no one would be saying anything really negative about Kyle Pitts. And as Hayden points out here, he would be a nearly flawless wide receiver prospect, 97th percentile wide receiver prospect. But we get to play him at tight end in fantasy. And so when we start to combine all these factors, like, we just get smarter over the offseason, right? We just learn things. And I wish I had kind of had this take in May, and Kyle Pitts was one of my highest owned players. I'm trying to get there, but it's just a situation where tight end, it's kind of like, everything opened up for Alvin Kamara, right? There were real reasons, and I had reasons why I was a little bit skittish on Alvin Kamara. That has all changed, and we can change our opinions when things change. And, nothing has necessarily changed about Kyle Pitts, but it has changed about the draft market and the world that we live in that we're drafting within. Tight end just gets worse and worse and worse. And the only good late round tight ends get bumped up, right? I was able to, take some late round shots when Cole Kmet was super late, and when Hunter Henry and Jonnu were super late, right? But now those guys, because there's no one else left available, those guys get, Cole Kmet's up 3-4 rounds in ADP at least. And I'm not saying to avoid Cole Kmet either, but I'm saying, it dries up faster now when we're drafting. And so that edge with these elites is even greater. I would argue that every single one. So this is a Kyle Pitts tweet and an elite tight end tweet. Kyle Pitts is just the guy to me that has the legendary upside at a slightly cheaper cost than the top 3 guys. And so he's the guy I'm really trying to buy on, because I've already been buying the other elite guys. And I actually have been taking Pitts for a while, but it's just so evidently clear to me right now that Kyle Pitts is a way that we can kind of leverage the field, knowing that those elite tight ends are good picks with a slightly reduced cost, right? Do you want to take your early running back? Do you want to take your early receivers, whatever? You can still get Kyle Pitts in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Or if you're in a managed league, I had my main home league yesterday. It was an auction. I think we got Kyle Pitts for like $18, and Travis Kelce went for like $1 billion, and even Kittle and Waller went for, 30 plus or something like that. And we got Kyle Pitts for much cheaper. People are just not on Kyle Pitts to quite the same extent. It's not that he's like just this absolute screaming value, but I think in terms of his upside, he just makes for this phenomenal pick that I think we should be buying as we get close to, these contests locking. So Pitts is an example that I'm great question, Andrew. I definitely want to, as much as I can, maximize the value that I get him. But we do also sometimes fall into these pockets, like in the late 3rd or something, where you get past the tier of wide receivers and all those wide receivers are the same. And so I'm willing to reach a couple of picks on him there. And then, so like, I don't know, the 307 through the, end of the, from like the 307, 308 on in the 3rd round, there's typically a tier of wide receivers that goes away. The Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, CD, that Keenan Allen, that tier of wide receivers is gone. And then there's this huge tier. I love all those wide receivers there, right? The Rams guys, Lockett, Godwin, the Bengals guys, they're all great. But then you can take Pitts and then kind of see what happens with those other wide receivers. You're going to get one of them. You're definitely, with Cooper Kupp, Lockett, Godwin, Higgins, etc. You're going to get one of those guys, Evans, Woods, right? Whoever you like there, you're going to be able to get one of those guys. So it's kind of I'm not reaching for him crazy early, but I'm making him a priority. And I think just as the season has played out, both for Kyle Pitts, for the tight end position, and then just like what late rounds look like, how we want to diversify our portfolio. I think Kyle Pitts has just become a guy who you can very easily see how he's kind of the skeleton key to the season, in my opinion. And I mean, this is like pretty true. Jimmy Graham kind of was a wide receiver. He was kind of Kyle Pitts before Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is a significantly better athlete and better at football than Jimmy Graham, even when Jimmy Graham was at his peak. But it's like the same thing. Jimmy Graham was basically used as a wide receiver in that offense. He was actually, despite how big he was actually quite terrible blocker. But he was basically used as a wide receiver in that offense, but he gets this tight end label, right? In real football and in fantasy. And I think we're going to start to see this evolution. Like Kyle Pitts is the greatest example of this that we'll ever see, but we're going to start to see more of these guys that are called tight ends. But they're basically just, that's actually what like Anthony Firkser is. And he is not anywhere near as good as this or whatever. But it's actually what the issue is with Anthony Firkser in fantasy is that he doesn't really play tight end. He's like listed as a tight end, but he's a glorified wide receiver. And they only use him in passing situations. So that hurts him because he doesn't get on the field all the time, but he's basically a wide receiver. And so that's how I'm like Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver that you get to play at tight end. And he's an elite wide receiver prospect with all the opportunity in the world in an amazing situation. And so I think we can leverage him up through the end of these drafts, because even if he gets a little more expensive, he's not going to rise that much. But Kyle Pitts is like this shining example of, I think, elite tight end, right? I'm using Kyle Pitts as the name, but elite tight end, I think in all formats, managed, dynasty keeper, auction leagues, best ball, whatever. I think the elite tight end is like a total cheat code. And I think Kyle Pitts has the best combination of cost and payoff to me. Is there risk? Sure. There's risk with all of these guys. I actually think he has a pretty high floor. That's just my opinion. But we're always looking for this, like, combination of, Ben Gretsch always says, small loss, big win is the kind of player, right? Low risk, high upside. And I believe that Kyle Pitts is like that. He's right in this pocket of the draft where, you're not giving up too much because, like we talked about with the wide receivers, or like, do you want to draft a running back around there? All those running backs are the same. He's in this tier where you just like drop him in and it doesn't really change anything about the kinds of players that you're getting around him, in my opinion. And we know what he provides. And the payoff is such, I always talk about payoffs. Payoffs are the king. We're always trying to identify guys that can pay us off in such a way that we make a lot of money, right? We're setting out to, whether it's win our home league, win one of these gigantic contests. We're always setting out to get paid off, right? I want to win $1 million. You guys want to win $1 million. And so identifying the players that through various different things, right? A ton of different variables create this huge payoff. And I think just as the season has gone on, as particularly as the last couple, months have gone on, last couple weeks, I guess, have gone on with tight ends, with how drafts are. I think Kyle Pitts is probably my favorite example of a guy that can pay us off in, is there importance in that range to select a handful of guys, but kind of rotate them? Yeah, exactly. And that's another kind of perk of Kyle Pitts is you can drop him in that range, right? Late third or early fourth round. And then kind of just play, I think Andrew talked about playing that ADP game. You can play that ADP game with those other guys around there, right? I don't really have a preference between. I kind of have a preference, but I don't, it doesn't really matter to me who I get of Kupp, Lockett, Woods, Evans, Godwin, Higgins, Chase, right? If you like Deontay, Claypool, Ayuk, there's just a never ending list of those guys right there. So it just helps to create this diversification. Like I actually didn't take a ton of Chris Godwin early on, and I've been getting Chris Godwin now as a pairing with with Kyle Pitts, or just but playing that ADP game there. I really, really like this. Yeah, there's such a drop off at tight end, like 100%. It's been a little unfortunate, with like Irv Smith injuries, Evan Ingram injuries, and there's those backup tight ends don't have, it's like wide receiver, not like running back. There's not contingent value really on those backup tight ends. The tight ends are their value. Kyle Pitts is valuable because he's good at the game. It's not like when a running back goes down and you can plot Mike Davis in when CMC goes down and get 80 to 90% of his production. You're not getting that at tight end. So that's another reason why the elites are so valuable, because you just can't find, there's only so many tight ends that are even going to score like anything, real points wise for you. So I think that the tight end thing is a big one that I'm trying to do. And another reason why the tight end, yes, Joe, Pitts 105, take Pitts 105. But I was taking a lot of Kelce, and I still am going to take Kelce. And I think you should still take Kelce. But you start to play a 2v2, think it through like a 2v2 like thing. Like if you liked Kelce in the first round, or even you liked Waller or Kittle, now, okay, instead of taking Kelce, I can take Tyreek Hill in the first round, or Devontae Adams in the first round, or a running back in the first round, or Diggs, right? I love Diggs too. You get Tyreek Hill there, and then, so you take Tyreek Hill at the 107 instead of Kelce, and then you take Pitts at the 307. You were going to get whatever one of those wide receivers right there, right? You were going to get Cooper Kupp or Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or Robert Woods or Tyler Lockett there at the 307, because the Allen Robinson tier is gone. Allen Robinson and Terry McLaurin are gone. All the good running backs are gone, right? CEH is gone. So you were going to get one of those wide receivers anyway. Now you have Tyreek Hill and Kyle Pitts, or Travis Kelce and Cooper Kupp or Mike Evans. To me, that's the Tyreek Hill side. And I love Kelce. And then, like I said, don't stop drafting Kelce, in my opinion. But I really like the angle of Kyle Pitts. So the other last little thing on Kyle Pitts and the elite tight ends, why I'm even trying to hammer more elite tight ends than I have before, is if you look at Underdog, like if you've been drafting in Best Ball Mania, having two tight ends, like the 3 tight end strategy is even worse now because of what, like Matt said, where it's dried up so bad at the end of drafts. And even if you want Cole Kmet or something, you have to go significantly higher to get a Cole Kmet type. And so it's dried up so bad at the 3 tight end strategy is way worse now at tight end, without some of these guys that we used to be able to take, and with there's no influx really. I guess Tyler Kroft, I do like Tyler Kroft, but there's no influx of additional late round tight ends. And so the kind of the 3 tight end strategy is worse. Plus then now it allows us to cycle through different guys at the back end at running back, wide receiver, or quarterback, and kind of create this natural diversification in our lineups on those later round guys, while not having to use tight end. And then on like a site like DraftKings, how we can approach that for the last 3 days here that we have is that in my opinion, it's the softest thing that exists right now. If you don't love your team after every draft on DraftKings, you probably screwed up somewhere, because you can just get superstar wide receivers late. Some of these quarterbacks are even falling sometimes. Running back is a little bit thin, but you can take detours and still feel amazing about your team, because you're just never going to have bad wide receivers. Like I said, unless you're screwing up, you're still going to have 7 or 8 awesome wide receivers on DraftKings. Like, unless, like I said, you're doing something wrong. Like, you can take running backs early, you can take tight ends early, you can take quarterbacks early, and you can still get loaded wide receivers on DraftKings because it's just so soft. So what does that mean? That means taking that detour for Kyle Pitts or one of the elite tight ends is easier to do when the market isn't very efficient, because you don't get punished at the other positions for taking like that. That's the hard part sometimes about the elite tight end, right? Is like your wide receivers start looking bad, or your running backs start looking bad, or you have to punt off quarterback. And that does happen on underdogs sometimes. But on DraftKings, that doesn't happen. So get these elite guys, and Pitts is the cheapest one out of all of them, and the one I'm really trying to buy. I also think he's even better in PPR because I think his upside is through like immense volume. And then so I am gonna wrap this up fairly quickly. Because I know that Underdog is doing a big dog draft stream that everybody probably wants to get. If you're watching this, I highly recommend. I'm going to go watch it as soon as I'm done. Peter Overzet and Jack Settleman are drafting with the Underdog guys and doing a big dog draft. So I won't keep talking about Kyle Pitts, until your ears fall off. But the other thing to me is we talked about it a little bit in the Discord, kind of some things that we can do leading up these last few days that are a great way to not only kind of get value and maybe get an edge over the field, but it also helps you kind of smooth out your portfolio. If you were super heavy on certain guys or super light on certain guys throughout the draft season, my favorite example is DJ Chark. I was low on DJ Chark. I've made it known that I'm low on DJ Chark, and I'm still not crazy bullish on DJ Chark, but he's plummeted, right? Especially again on DraftKings. He's fallen a lot on Underdog too, but on DraftKings, totally plummeted, beyond pick 100. And so you can do things like draft DJ Chark instead of continuing to hammer Will Fuller every time there, or instead of continuing to hammer insert 10th or 11th round pick. You can now do that with some of these guys who have fallen, and you're going to be able to get DJ Chark, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, these guys at costs that are more affordable now. You're getting the cheapest version of DJ Chark, right? So now you're not being totally stubborn to these guys who have upside, even if you're like me, who are maybe lower on some of these guys. You can still get the appropriate exposure. This allows you to not be tied to all these specific player takes, right? So maybe there are some guys who have fallen who you were out on, like I was out on 7th round DJ Chark, but now on DraftKings especially, you can get DJ Chark in the 10th round. Now's a perfect time. Buy in on some DJ Chark in some of your remaining drafts. So that's kind of the other angle I'm really trying to take. And then the only other one that I will say is I think late round quarterback is another great way to attack these drafts leading up to here. The market got really, really, really high on Trey Lance and Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, kinda. Jalen Hurts. The market was really high on some of these guys, and they're falling now too. You're starting to get them at a little, it's not, several rounds, but they're falling a little bit more too. Lance had the finger thing. People are still skittish about, when are these guys going to start? And as more casuals and stuff come in, we're getting just a little bit of a discount on those later round quarterbacks, which allow us to then leverage the elite tight ends, right? Maybe take another early running back that you didn't want to do before, or, whatever strategy you want to employ. Using these late round quarterbacks allow us to build out really strong rosters. So those are the couple of things. Kyle Pitts. But elite tight ends, I think that is something that has become evidently clear over the, just even the last couple of weeks. The elite tight ends, using the values that we're getting on some of these guys, even if you're a little bit lower on them, like I was with DJ Chark, using this time to buy on some of those guys. Great portfolio diversifier. And holy cow, hold on. I do have to, that's funny. Kyle Pitts goes after TJ Hawkinson on ESPN. So if you're doing your managed league, and I like TJ Hawkinson too. TJ Hawkinson is actually another good example. TJ Hawkinson on DraftKings is falling a ton too. So you can I would include him in this conversation as well. I'm buying TJ Hawkinson. I would say Pitts and Hawkinson are probably the two tight ends on DraftKings specifically. I'm really trying to hammer over these last 3 days. So that, scooping up some value maybe that you weren't doing, right? I like Corey Davis too, but maybe don't buy the Corey Davis steam and start using that to get some of these other guys that you weren't getting before, or at least you weren't getting at these good prices before, and consider some of these later round quarterbacks. All right, guys. we're getting close. We're getting close. I'm going to be drafting constantly over these last 3 days, and tomorrow we're back with happy hour. Tomorrow, the last preseason happy hour. We'll definitely be continuing happy hours when the season gets here, but tomorrow is the last preseason happy hour. And I'm getting final tweaks and everything up on the website. I got rankings to update and getting all the content posted. But yeah, tomorrow, Spike Week happy hour, 5 p.m. Eastern time. I will see you guys there. And until then, make sure you're drafting Kyle Pitts.